how ionization and pKa values affects the biological activity of the drug. Now we know that the drugs get absorbed in the undissociated state, but in the ionization state or as a form of ions cannot cross the biological membranes, but it acts inside the body, it acts as an ion. That means the biological activity of the drug can we can expect the biological activity of drug as the ions at the ion state, but it cannot cross the membrane in the ion forms. So what is important here? That is the undissociated form of drug. It gets rapidly absorbed from biological membranes. Now why undissociated form of drugs? Only the undissociated form of the drugs get rapidly absorbed from biological membrane. This is because that the biological membrane, the nature of the biological membrane is charged. That is the charged membrane. Charged ions are present in the biological membranes. That charged membranes. Another phenomenon what's happened here is that the hydration of the drug molecules. Now hydration of the drug molecules will increase the size of the drug molecules and it will prevent the dissolution process. That means hydration of drug molecules. Hydration of the drug molecules, which prevents it from getting absorbed from the biological membranes. Now, what is the solution of this? We require undissociated form of drugs. So, we can consider here that we have to modify a drug so that it remains undissociated. It remains undissociated during the passage through the biological membrane. So, we consider here the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. So we will be discussing it later, a little bit later. For now, we are discussing about what is the nature of the drug. The nature of the drug is that drugs are either weakly acidic in nature or weakly basic. So, if we consider, let us consider how many types of acids are there and what is the dissociation of weakly acids. Let us consider the acidic drugs. Suppose weakly acidic drugs, dissociation of weakly acidic drug, dissociation of weakly acidic drug, HA. If we consider the dissociation of this weakly acidic drug, there are two possibilities. One is that HA, that is the unionized form, reacts with water, which water has amphoteric nature. In here, water acts as a base. It gives the conjugated acid conjugated acid, and its conjugate base, And another form of acid is ionized form. Suppose it is ionized form. It reacts with water and it forms which is conjugated acid, and plus, which is unionized form. So this is the two possibilities of the acid we can encounter in a pharmaceutical preparation or in a pharmaceutical acids that we have used. So we are using. So now, what are the pharmaceutically important acids? Pharmaceutically important acids are pharmaceutically important acids are pharmaceutical acids are inorganic acids, such as HCl, H2SO4, this is a carboxylic acid, acids such as the salicylic acid, anthralinic acid, Third category, that is sulfonamide. Sulfonamides that is hydantoin, hydantoins, and now we will see that how pKa and pH are related. They are related through Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, which we will encounter here. Henderson-Hasselbalch equation states that for weakly acidic drugs, pH minus pKa is equals to log of ionized form by unionized form. So in this way, pH and pKa are related. Now if we calculate percentage ionization, we can write it as percentage ionization, we can write it as 10 to the power pH minus pKa divided by 1 plus 10 to the power pH minus pK into 100. Because we are calculating percentage, no? For weakly basic drugs, we can calculate pKa minus pH is equals to log of ionized ionized, unionized form, ionized form of the drug. And if we calculate the percentage ionization, it is simply 10 to the power pKa minus pH. Now it is reversed in that case of weakly acidic drugs. Now what is the beauty of these two Henderson-Hasselbalch equations? The beauty of these equations is that we can calculate the percentage of the drug molecules that gets ionized. If we know the percentage of molecules that get ionized, we can easily think of it that whether the drug is flowing through the biological, will pass through the biological membranes, or it gets stuck. So it is the beauty of the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. Let us calculate it with an example. Suppose we are considering here the absorption of drug through gastrointestinal tract, which is also a lipoidal membrane. Suppose for GI tract, we generally represent it as pH partition hypothesis. pH partition hypothesis, which is the theory behind absorption of drugs from the gastrointestinal tract. GI absorption. Now it is depend on three principles. One is it is depend on the dissociation constant, pKa of the drug. It is depend on the oil and water coefficient, that is also represented by K O by W, which is also represented partition coefficient, which is also represents its lipid solubility, and the pH of the environment, that is the pH of the environment that a drug molecules encounters within the GI tract. That means pH of the environment. Let us consider an example of a weakly acidic drug, that is salicylic acid. Let us consider an example for salicylic acid. The pH of the pH of the stomach, that is it is a weakly acidic drug, so it gets rapidly absorbed from the stomach. So the pH of stomach is 1.2, and the pKa of the salicylic acid is 3. Okay. Now if we put this into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, then we can find here the proportion of the drug that gets ionized and the proportion of drug that are remain in an undissociated state. So putting it into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, pH is 1.2 and K is 3. Putting it into the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, pH minus pKa equals to log of ionized unionized. If we substitute these values, then 1.2 minus 3 log of ionized, unionized, now if we remove this log, we have to do anti-log. So ionized, unionized, that is undissociated form of drug, and the ratio of the ionization and ionized form of the drug equals to anti-log of minus 1.8. Okay, which is approximately 0.016. Now you are seeing that almost 98% of drug remains in an unionized state. So we can say that the percentage that is the proportion of the ionized form of drug is only 0.016, which is not gonna absorb from the GI tract. But the unionized form of the drug, which is 98.4% of the drug, gets rapidly absorbed from the stomach. So 98.4% of undissociated, dissociated or unionized form of the drug, unionized form of the drug gets rapidly absorbed, gets absorbed from the stomach. So we can see here that the undissociated form of the drug is necessary for the absorption of the drug from the GI tract. But what about when it reaches the blood? When it reaches the blood, it acquires a different environment, a different microenvironment, which is very different from what we have discussed in case of stomach. In blood, the pH changes to 7.4. Thus, we can divide the lipoidal membrane. The lipoidal membrane differentiate the two compartments. One is the pH of stomach, which is 1.2. That is the lumen part of the stomach. And it is the blood part, where the drug encounters increase in the pH. pH increases to 7.4. Now what happened in the blood part? We have already discussed what happens in the stomach lumen, and we will now discuss that what happens to the blood part, where the drug encounters a new pH environment. So here we consider pH equals to 7.4 and pKa of salicylic acid, which we already know is 3. Now it encounters a new environment where it reaches the blood part, where the pH increases to 7.4. So by applying Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, pH minus pKa is equals to log of ionized, unionized. General equation. So putting the value 7.4 minus 3.0 is equals to log of ionized, unionized. So ionized, unionized. Is equals to anti-log of 4.4, which is so you can see here the ionized portion. But from this ratio we can see that the ionized portion is much more greater than that of unionized portion. that is, the drug gets highly dissociated. It exists as ion in the blood part, and that is important for the biological activity. So we see that here the reversal of what we have studied in the lumen part, that the unionized portion was dominant there, and in the blood part we see that ionized portion is a dominant part, 5:1:1. So we can see here that the biological activity of the drug is shown as an ionic form. What happened? What is the relation between? Now we can discuss here. So what is the relation between? What is the relation between pH, percentage ionization, and pH? What is the relation between these two? Percentage ionization and pH. When pH equals to pKa, 50% of drug gets dissociated. And we know that pKa, concentration of base and concentration of acid is equals to 1. So in the case, if we consider a case of indomethacin and ephedrine, indomethacin have pKa of around 4.5, and ephedrine hydrochloride, which has pKa of about 9.5, we can draw a graphical representation showing that how pH and ionization are interrelated. So let us consider a graphical representation. pH, and it is percentage ionized. This is the x-axis, this is y-axis. We have 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So we can say that when pH equals to pKa, 50% of the drugs get ionized. This is in the case of indomethacin. And it is in the case of indomethacin. And in the case of basic drug, that is ephedrine, you see that 50% here also, and 10, 20, 30, 60, 70, 80, and here also when pH equals to pKa, 50% of get ionized. So a slight change in the pH, even if pH is increased by 1, then 90.9% of the drugs get dissociated. Okay. So here 90.1% approximately increased in the even a one increment of 1 pH, increase the percentage ionization by 90.2%, 90.1% in the case of indomethacin, but in the case of ethylene hydrochloride it is only 9.1%. So from this graph we can understand what is the relation between the percentage ionization and the pH. So in the next video lecture we will be discussing about the solubility, how solubility of the drug is important, how the solubility is affecting the biological activity, and so on. Thank you.